right now, and they are not connected with the teams, they're asked to depart from this particular courtroom. I should remind the teams that no recesses will be allowed with the exception of something being granted for a health emergency. I should ask also next with respect to this, the scoring panelists, do any of the scoring panelists recognize or believe there's any reason that there might be a conflict? Well, I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to presume from that silence that the scoring panelists are not recognizing a conflict or seeing a conflict. Any disputes arising out of the competition must be reported in accordance with the competition rules. Time requirements are to be adhered to. What I do is ask you right now, and I'll start with the plaintiff, if you could introduce the team members.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Mallory Camberos, and on behalf of my client, Dakota Weirs, today I will be presenting the defense's preliminary matters and conducting the direct examination of Casey Rogers and the cross-examination of Dr. Devin Williams. Permission for my fellow counsel to introduce themselves.
Granted.
Good afternoon, or good morning, Your Honor. My name is Lauren Hayes, and on behalf of my client, Dakota Weirs, today I will be presenting the plaintiff's closing statement and conducting the direct examination of Carson Durst and the cross-examination of Skylar Weirs.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Rick Lemon, and on behalf of my client, Dakota Weirs, today I will be presenting the plaintiff's opening.
I'm having a hard time hearing this gentleman.
My apologies, Your Honor.
Good, you're good now.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Rick Lemon, and on behalf of my client, Dakota Weirs, today I will be presenting the plaintiff's opening and conducting the direct examination of Dakota Weirs, as well as the cross-examination of Blake Doncourt. Permission for our witnesses to introduce themselves.
Granted. Pardon me.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Mishti Jukar, and I am Dr. Casey Rogers.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor. I am Ellie Rasmussen, and I am Carson Durst.
All right.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Abigail Couillard, and I am Dakota Weirs.
All right, thank you. Now if we can have the defense do the same.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Katie Greenfield for the defense. I will be directing Skylar Weirs and cross-examining Dr. Casey Rogers, as well as delivering the opening statement. Permission for my co-counsel to introduce themselves.
Granted.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Caitlin Clint for the defense, and I'll be direct examining Blake Doncourt and cross-examining Dakota Weirs.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Christopher Dudzik, and I will be direct examining Dr. Devin Williams and cross-examining Carson Durst, as well as delivering the closing argument.
All right.
Permission for our witnesses to introduce themselves.
Granted.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Sophia Weidnecht, and I am Skylar Weirs.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Anna Nordlander, and I am Blake Doncourt.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Peter Heitman, and I am Dr. Devin Williams.
All right. What I'm going to do next is swear you folks in before we start this process. And I've got to go to the right spot on my rules here to get to that language, so bear with me for a second. Now, this may seem a little odd because you're all in different locations, but it's the same as if you were in the courtroom. So what I need to have you do is raise your right hand for me. And this is, I'm directing this to the team members, that is the people who are serving as lawyers in this case. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? So answer by saying, I do.
I do.
I do, Your Honor.
All right. The next we have our witnesses. And the witnesses, if you'd raise your right hand for me. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition. So answer by saying, I do.
I do.
Thank you. Let me see if there's anything else here. Do we have any gallery members that are watching right now?
Your Honor, we do not. Everyone is watching via live stream if they are watching in the gallery, but they are not allowed to be in the Zoom.
Okay, great. So there's no point in swearing in gallery members. The next thing I have to do is address the scoring panelists. So if the scoring panelists could also raise their right hand for me and answer the following question by saying, I do. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. I see Ms. Griffin. Thank you. All right. I should note that we're at the stage in the trial process where the parties will be presenting their opening statements. I should advise the teams that I will permit redirect examination and recross examination in this case. I think that was a potential for that being an option, but I will permit that to take place. All right, the parties have indicated they're ready to proceed. Is the plaintiff ready to proceed with opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
You are here today because a young woman's life was ruined by Lush Fertilizer and its negligent and greedy employees. Supporting our case, we have Dr. Rogers, an experienced and professional expert in matters relating to this case. She conducted her own research, independent of the financial power of Lush Fertilizer, and found that those exposed to Drufo were 10 times as likely to be diagnosed with cancer than the average man. Second, you will hear about a researcher oppressed by the very company he was serving, simply for doing his job. Carson Durst was previously a member of the research and development team, who rose quickly through the ranks of Lush Fertilizer. Yet as soon as he called out Drufo for the poison that he is, he was not only ignored but silenced. His performance reports took a massive dip, and when he tried to tell the CEO of the company face-to-face of his blatant oppression, he was blown off so the CEO could deal with irrelevant personal matters. Finally, you will hear about the person most abused by Lush Fertilizer, Dakota Weirs. Dakota Weirs was a promising young woman and a respected member of her community with a bright future in music, even being invited to Juilliard. But all of that was stripped away from her when she worked with Lush Fertilizer. While she may not have worn long-sleeve clothes during the middle of summer, Lush is the only one at fault. As you will hear today, Dakota weighed the consequences of using Lush for herself and made her choice. If Lush notified her of the risk of getting cancer, she undoubtedly would have made a different choice. Consequences of using Lush herself and made her choice. If Lush had notified her of the risk of, Blake Doncourt is a greedy and incompetent man who seeks only to gain money and reputation for his company. As you will see today, he ignored or missed a serious error in his product's warning. When he was given the option, he chose not to bake Drufo because of the strain it would put on his own wallet, and he attempted to sue Carson Durst after he took his underappreciated expertise elsewhere. Skylar Weirs is an underqualified expert witness who's letting personal motivation and bias blind her to the truth. She has only written one article relating to Drufo. Her research is entirely based off other articles and sources, who, as far as she knows, could be just as underqualified as her. She also stubbornly insists Drufo is not carcinogenic, despite not having intimate knowledge of medicine, chemistry, toxicology, or anything else that would give her the knowledge to make such a claim. And Dr. Devin Williams is the textbook definition of a hired gun. He was only brought on this case because of the bias from his position in Lush Fertilizer. While he is undoubtedly an expert, he has no intention to use his expertise because of the gain he would get from promoting the false narrative that Drufo is not carcinogenic. Chiefly, the defense's side is completely based on the premise that Drufo does not possess carcinogenic qualities. But this is a civil case, and thus we are using the rule of preponderance of evidence, meaning that the plaintiff's burden of proof is fulfilled when there is over a 50% probability that our side is truthful, which we will have achieved with these witnesses' testimonies today. In conclusion, siding with Lush would not only be ridiculous, but dangerous for everyone else they could still hurt with their cancer-causing product and negligent attitude towards safety.
All right, thank you. Does the defense desire to make an opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may do so.
Your Honor, members of the jury, may it please the court. My name is Katie Greenfield, and I represent the defendant, Lush Fertilizer, in this case. Ladies and gentlemen, irresponsibility has grave consequences. In this case, the plaintiff was irresponsible when she chose to be comfortable by neglecting the proper precautions she knew she should have taken when dealing with Drufo. The plaintiff, Dakota Weirs, has brought forth a negligence claim against my client. Dakota has been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, a horrible condition. While the defense offers sympathy for what has happened to Dakota, we disagree with Dakota's claim. She believes that 1, Lush fertilizer contains a chemical bonding agent known as Drufo. True. 2, Lush fertilizer knew or should have known that Drufo causes non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And 3, Lush's failure to properly warn its users about the dangers of its product is the sole cause of Dakota's cancer. However, at the end of this trial, once you have heard all of the evidence, it will be apparent that a verdict of not liable is the only appropriate verdict. The defense denies that Drufo causes non-Hodgkin cancer. We counter that even if it does, which we deny, Dakota Weirs was also negligent for failing to wear protective clothing and a respirator while working with our product. There is no proof that the chemical from our product is what caused her cancer. But even so, Dakota had the responsibility to use reasonable care when working with our fertilizer. When you hear all of the evidence presented to you today, I want you to keep 2 main things in mind. 1, the plaintiff was fully aware of the precautions she should have taken when working with a fertilizer like Lush. And 2, Drufo is a revolutionary product that is far better for the planet and for people using other fertilizers on the market. Today, you will hear from 3 of the plaintiff's witnesses. You will hear from the plaintiff herself, Dakota Weirs, the lead product developer for Terrace Greenery, Carson Durst, and a professor at UC Berkeley, Dr. Casey Rogers. Dakota Weirs will testify that the sole cause of her non-Hodgkin lymphoma is due to her use of Lush fertilizer. However, she will admit that she was told to cover her face and wear long clothes when she worked with the chemicals. She chose comfortability when she was specifically told to wear long clothes and a respirator. She knew that she should have taken the proper precautions, and yet she still chose to put herself in harm's way. Carson Durst will testify that she worked her way up fast within Lush. Lush hired Carson straight out of college at ASU. You will hear that Carson got a lot of complaints and had to go on a performance improvement plan or probationary status. When you hear what Carson will say on the stand today, I want you to ask yourself this question. Is Carson actually qualified, or is it because of her relationship with the Don courts? Dr. Casey Rogers will testify as the first time as an expert witness this morning. You will hear about a study that she conducted that to her proves that Drufo is unsafe and is what caused the plaintiff's cancer. However, you will come to hear that her study has never been published in a scholarly article, has never been peer-reviewed, and has never been replicated. You will hear that this study is problematic because of its small sample size that compares apples to oranges. Then you will hear from our 3 witnesses. First, you will hear from Skylar Weirs. From Skylar, you will hear that Drufo is undoubtedly good for the environment. Drufo does not need to be applied as often as other fertilizers, meaning there's less nitrogen penetration and fewer carcinogenic pesticides. Next, you'll hear from Blake Doncourt. From Blake, you will hear how Carson's claim about the safety of Drufo didn't come up until Carson was fired and started working for Terrace Greenery, Lush's biggest competitor. You will hear how Carson could have brought up these complaints while she was working for Lush, and it was actually her job to do that. Last, you will hear from Dr. Devin Williams. From Dr. Devin Williams, you will hear how Drufo users have no higher risk of developing non-Hodgkin lymphoma than users of other fertilizers. He proves this by walking through the process of eutrophication. You will hear that not only is Drufo safe, but Drufo is also good for the environment and for users of other fertilizers on the market. Ladies and gentlemen, irresponsibility has grave consequences. In this case, the plaintiff was irresponsible when she chose to be comfortable by neglecting the proper precautions she knew she should have taken when dealing with Drufo. The plaintiff has the responsibility to prove beyond a preponderance of evidence. A verdict of not liable is the only appropriate verdict. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, counsel. The plaintiff may call their first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand. Hello, Dr. Rogers. Please state your first and last name, spelling the latter for the court.
Dr. Casey Rogers, Rogers.
And what is your current occupation, Dr. Rogers?
I am currently a professor at the University of California, Berkeley.
And what classes do you teach?
I teach courses in horticultural entomology and herbicide selectivity and action.
What degrees do you currently hold?
I currently hold a PhD in agriculture and entomology from the University of California, Berkeley, and a Bachelor of Science in agriculture and chemistry from Colorado State University.
Did you pursue any other forms of education before your position at UC Berkeley?
Prior to my position, I was a research analyst for a multinational chemical company.
What was your main area of study for this research?
I studied the effect of chemicals on the human body.
And what is the formal name for this field?
Toxicology.
Do you have knowledge of toxicology beyond what an average person might have?
Yes, I do.
Has this given you any experience in expert advisory?
Absolutely.
Have you published any works that can provide insight into your qualifications?
I have. In 2019, I published a report on Drufa's effects on the human body.
Your Honor, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 6 and 7?
I don't think so.
Your Honor, may I ask my timekeeper to please screen share Exhibit 6 and 7?
With the court,
Yes.
you may.
It appears my timekeeper may be experiencing some technical difficulty as we have not heard a response from her. Is it appropriate if I hold Exhibit 6 and 7 up to the camera?
You may.
Thank you.
And that appears to be, just tell me what it is, counsel.
This is a copy of the witness's curriculum vitae, and Exhibit 7 is a copy of their published records, published works.
Got it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 6?
Yes, I do.
Dr. Rogers, could you please identify what Exhibit 6 and 7 are?
Exhibit 6 is a copy of my curriculum vitae, and Exhibit 7 is a copy of my published works.
Do you have the ability to change these documents?
Yes.
Are these documents updated?
Yes.
Are these documents accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer Exhibit 6 and 7 into evidence, as at this time, the authenticity of these documents have been stipulated.
All right, defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 6 and 7 are admitted.
Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 702, at this time, I tender this witness as an expert in the field of horticulture, entomology, and toxicology.
Defense?
Permission to conduct a quick voir dire?
You may.
Okay. I would just like you to restate which 3 fields you would like to be admitted as an expert in.
For me, sorry.
Yes.
I would like to be admitted as an expert in the fields of agriculture, chemistry, and toxicology.
Okay. Just for the purposes of the jury, can you please define those 3 terms just so everyone knows?
Agriculture refers to the study in plants, and chemistry refers to the study in chemicals in relation to that, and toxicology refers to the effects of chemicals on the body.
And then did you also say the entomology and horticulture?
Yes, I think that goes under kind of agriculture.
Okay, thank you. No objection, Your Honor.
All right, the court will admit Dr. Rogers is an expert in the fields, and she may render opinions within those fields that she has stated. Counsel, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, what initially brought Drufo to your attention?
Drufa was rushed to the market with insufficient studies on its testing, and I was concerned for consumer safety.
What was your impression of how the scientific community was reacting to Drufo?
There were many negative reports on Drufo's safety.
What were some of those negative reports?
This includes the report of it being carcinogenic in rats.
Why exactly did you focus on Drufo instead of, say, another fertilizer?
Other fertilizers include chemicals that have been studied sufficiently on the market. Drufa was rushed without insufficient study.
And how did you act on this perceived lack of safety?
I conducted a study of my own.
Could you please give a brief explanation of this study to the court?
Yes, my study included 3 groups. One group was consistently exposed to Drufo. The second group was exposed to Drufo on occasion, and the third group was never exposed to Drufo. I compared the exposure groups to the third group over a prolonged period of time.
And what exactly did you conclude?
I concluded that the first group that was consistently exposed to Drufo was 10 times more likely to develop health conditions such as cancer, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the group that was occasionally exposed was 5 times more likely to develop these health conditions.
Did you come to any conclusion on the efficacy of masks?
No, I did not. Laborers are not typically provided with masks.
To the best of your knowledge, did the plaintiff wear a mask?
No.
Did these other workers in the studies typically wear a mask?
No, they typically did not wear masks.
In your expert opinion, was Dakota's lack of protection similar to those other reasonable agricultural workers?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Dr. Casey Rogers. This is your first time testifying in court as an expert witness, correct?
That is correct.
You've had published work before, correct?
That is correct.
However, this particular study you talk about in your witness statement on the safety of Drufo has never been published in a scholarly article, correct?
No, it has not.
Okay, let's dive into this study. We can start with the basics. You knew which participants were exposed to Drufo and which participants were not exposed to Drufo when conducting your study, correct?
That is correct.
So it's safe to say that your experiment was not a double-blind experiment, correct?
That is correct.
But double-blind experiments are the standard of studies, correct?
I assume so.
So because your experiment was not a double-blind experiment, room exists for bias, correct?
There is a possibility of bias, though I do not think that I do believe that my study was conducted without that.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, in this study of yours, you decided to compare a control group of people who had never been exposed to Drufo, a group of people working with Drufo on occasion, and a group of people working with Drufo on a daily, correct?
That is correct.
But you didn't compare users of fertilizer to Drufo to other users of fertilizer without Drufo, correct?
Well, no, I did not.
So you don't know if lush fertilizer is the only fertilizer that would produce these results, correct?
Since I was specifically focused on Drufo and fertilizers in use of Drufo, I compared farmers and gardeners as well. So those who did not use Drufo was my main focus, and I assume that other fertilizers on the market today do not have those concerns.
Okay, let's talk about that. Wouldn't you agree that farm laborers and gardeners are exposed to environmental conditions that people without these professions wouldn't encounter?
Yes, which is why I included them in my study, because I wanted a wide variety of subjects to conduct the most accurate results.
Those could include pesticides and plant foods, correct?
That is correct.
But this study does not account for any other pesticides or plant foods, correct?
No, it is focused on Drufo.
So you cannot definitively say that Drufo was the sole cause of Dakota's cancer because you don't know about these other chemicals.
I can say that Drufo, there is a significant risk of cancer in Drufo, but as with any science, I cannot 100% say that Drufo causes cancer.
And with this knowledge, you still chose to compare these 3 groups, correct?
Yes, I did.
And just to clarify, Dr. Rogers, this study you conducted has never been peer-reviewed, yes or no?
No, it has not.
Yet the standard of practice of any worthwhile study is to, of course, be peer-reviewed, correct?
Yes, studies typically should be peer-reviewed.
And it's never been replicated either, correct?
No, it has not.
Wouldn't you agree that your study could have only been validated more if we had other people try it and see if they got the same results?
Yes, I feel my study would have been validated more, but it is still valid on its own.
Okay. Again, just to clarify, this case is the first time anyone has ever heard of this study.
This is the first time my case is being used in this study. My study is being used in the case.
And the study of yours is the groundwork of the plaintiff's entire case, correct?
I wouldn't say it's the
Objection
entire-
argumentative.
Response.
Your Honor, I'm trying to see the weight of this argument to the plaintiff's case.
Reply, if any.
This is asking the witness to assume that there is no other evidence when none has been entered, and accept the defense's postulation that no more evidence will be entered.
All right. Perhaps it's not argumentative, but there needs to be additional foundation laid before she can render that opinion. So overrule the objection, but require additional foundation.
Okay, Your Honor. Do you fully believe that your case proves that Dakota has non-Hodgkin lymphoma due to her use of Lush fertilizer?
Yes, I do.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Redirect, if any.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, you included so many people. For what reason specifically?
I wanted the most accurate results by comparing a variety of groups in my study to Drufo.
And including so many groups could possibly help prevent bias, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. That is all, Your Honor.
Cross-examination based on that.
No further cross, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. You're excused. The plaintiff may call their next witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Carson Durst to the stand.
All right.
Could you please state your full legal name and spell the last for the record?
Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
Mr. Durst, why are you here today?
I'm here to testify about Blake Doncourt and his company, Lush Fertilizer.
What is the nature of your relationship with the defendant, Blake Doncourt?
When I was younger, I was best friends with Charles Doncourt, Blake's son. We played soccer together on a local traveling team, and Charles and I became inseparable friends through that. I was also quite close with the rest of his family.
So, how did your career begin?
I hadn't really planned on working at Lush, but I hadn't found a job shortly before graduation. I began to worry about this, and I talked to Charles about it. He told me that Blake was hiring interns at his company, Lush Fertilizer, and I put in my application, and I was eventually hired with the research and development team.
Okay. When did you begin your employment at Lush Fertilizer?
I officially began my employment with Lush in June of 2003.
How did this job fare out for you in the beginning?
I rose through the ranks quickly. After only 3 months, I was promoted to a full-time position as product development engineer.
What were some of the products you worked on while working at this company?
The biggest assignment I got was developing Drufo.
What is Drufo?
Drufo is a patented bonding agent that helps keep their fertilizer products preserved and intact.
And what is the value of Drufo to Lush Fertilizer?
Drufo increases longevity and texture of the products to set them apart from their competitors.
Okay. And what was the value? Oh, sorry. What was your task in this assignment?
I was tasked with researching one of the chemical compounds that compromised Drufo, and I helped test the safety of the bonding agent.
Okay. Your Honor, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 3?
I don't think so.
Okay. Is it also okay if I hold it up?
Sure, if that's what you I've seen it when I look through the preparation for the trial. But why don't you tell me what it is?
Okay. This is a study found by Mr. Durst while working at Lush Fertilizer about the safety of Drufo. It's an outside experiment.
All right, thank you. And that's what exhibit number is that?
3.
Okay, thank you.
And witness, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 3?
I do.
Okay. Mr. Durst, what is this document?
This is the outside study I found during my time researching Drufo at Lush.
Did you ever document these findings or its results in a work given notebook?
Yes, I documented what I found in my scientific notebook.
What type of research did you write in said notebook?
I wrote everything about Drufo and its safety in that notebook.
And was this notebook ever reviewed by any superiors or management, upper management?
Yes. My superior, Jerry Langley, was supposedly checked and routinely monitored my notebook.
Okay, at this time, Your Honor, I offer Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Defense.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Durst, can you refer to Exhibit 3 and read the study title on the top of the page?
Lifespan exposure to low doses of C3N09P beginning during early life increases cancer effects in rats.
Could you please read the first paragraph of the conclusion column?
The results of this carcinogenicity bioassay, our first long-term carcinogenicity bioassay on C3N09P, demonstrate C3N09P's potential carcinogenicity at a dose level close to a normal monthly intake for humans in occupations involving frequent, unprotected exposure to commercial fertilizers. Furthermore, the study demonstrates that when lifespan exposure to C3N09P begins during early life, its carcinogenic effects are increased.
Thank you, Mr. Durst. So what was your time frame with your involvement on the Drufo case at Lush?
Lush started developing Drufo in 2001. I joined the company in 2003, and Lush Fertilizer was testing the safety of Drufo.
Okay, were there any further studies conducted on this chemical compound after finding these preliminary findings?
Yes, my team conducted an in-house study to test whether Drufo was potentially carcinogenic in humans.
And when was that second study concluded?
December of 2006.
Were there any findings from your research team that sparked your interest or concern?
One scientist expressed concern that not only may Drufo contain a carcinogen, that analysis also found that it was perhaps linked to non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
Was your research involving the bonding agent ever mentioned in the final conclusion?
My research and the other scientists' research was never mentioned in the final analysis of the product.
Okay. Did you notify any superiors about these concerning findings?
Yes, I did. I documented the findings of the at-home study in my scientific notebook, which was given to me by the company.
While conducting research on Drufo, who was responsible for reviewing this scientific notebook?
Jerry Langley, my superior, and an upper echelon manager, Alex Monroe.
So, Mr. Durst, at this point in your research as a lead product manager, were you concerned with the safety of Drufo?
Yes, I was concerned.
Was the concern ever discussed with said superiors?
I brought up my concern during a meeting that Jerry attended where we all discussed the conclusions of our studies.
Was Jerry Langley responsible, and Jerry Langley was responsible for publishing the final conclusion on the Drufo study?
Yes, she was.
Objection, Your Honor, that's a leading question.
May I
I'm
read
sorry,
this question?
could you repeat the question for me?
Oh, sorry, like the initial one?
The one that was objected to. Can you
Okay.
repeat that question?
Was Jerry Langley responsible for publishing the final conclusion on the Drufo study?
If there's an objection that it's leading, your response to that, Ms. Hayes.
May I reword the question?
Well, do you agree that it's leading?
No.
And why
I
is it
don't
not?
think it's
Why
it's not
is it
leading
not?
because
Go ahead.
it's not leading because I never I don't know the response, and I never say right or correct. I don't know the response, and I want to know who was responsible for publishing the final conclusion of the Drufo study.
Right. Reply to that in the defense.
Sorry, the initial question was actually worded as Jerry Langley was responsible, and then you left her to answer either yes or no.
All right. as it's current, as it was, the reason I asked it to be repeated again, because I didn't quite catch the language. If the question was Jerry Langley was responsible, that is leading. If the question was Jerry Langley responsible, that is not leading. The issue of leading is, does the question suggest the answer? So that's how I'll leave that. Ms. Hayes, you may continue with your examination of the witness.
Okay. Was Jerry Langley responsible for publishing the final conclusion on the DURFO study?
Yes, she was.
And was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma mentioned anywhere in this final report?
No, it was not.
Did the report address carcinogens?
No, but the report did recommend baking DURFO as part of the production process to eliminate the possibility DURFO could be carcinogenic.
Did you ever see any evidence elaborating on the fact that baking DURFO would eliminate the carcinogenic properties?
No, it was clear that the suggestion was framed in such a way to seem like the company was going above and beyond to comply with safety standards by baking the bonding agent.
And how did you personally feel about this final report?
It was clear that some of the data was left out of the final report.
Objection, Your Honor. Opinion.
Your objection is?
That's an opinionated statement.
All right. Your response to that, Ms. Hayes?
I'll move on.
All right, then you're withdrawing the question. You may continue.
What happened after the second study?
My annual performance review started to drop. My quality of work was criticized, and I was accused of not pulling my weight. I was put on probationary status.
So your performance reviews directly dropped after publishing your findings on the second study?
Yes, they did.
Despite never before seeing any sentiments in your reviews?
That is correct.
And did these findings that you published support Lush Fertilizer's agenda?
No, they did not.
Mr. Durst, as a former manager of Lush Fertilizer that oversaw the research into DURFO safety, do you believe Lush Fertilizer and Blake Doncourt were accurate and sufficient in their safety study on DURFO?
No, I do not. Not only did they not conduct enough research into DURFO safety, they blatantly attempted to hide the truth that they did find.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Durst, you spoke of your relationship with the Doncourts, and you say that they were like the family that you never had. Is that correct?
No, I said they were like family to me.
Okay, thank you. And although you deny these claims, do you agree that there's at least a small basis for the speculation that you were hired because of your relationship with the Doncourts?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase the question?
Is it possible? I'm sorry. Do you understand that people were upset that you were hired at Lush?
I do understand. However, I felt like I was qualified for the position. I did have a bachelor's in chemical engineering, and I was only hired as an intern at first.
Okay, and you were struggling to find work right out of college before the Doncourts hired you. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So, do you believe that you were the most qualified person for this job?
I do not believe that I was the most qualified person of the applicants. However, I was definitely qualified to be hired at Lush Fertilizer.
Thank you. And you said that before this job, you had absolutely no experience in any sort of work like this?
That is correct.
So you don't think that the Doncourts did any sort of preferential choosing of you as an intern?
I can't say whether or not that may have happened because I don't know for sure.
Okay, thank you. Do you have your witness statement in front of you?
I do not. Can
Not.
I?
Yes.
May I grab it? It's fine.
You may.
You're under permission to stop the time while this is going on.
Well, it depends on how long she's got to reach for that piece of paper. Hopefully it won't take very long.
It's right there.
Okay, thank you.
She's got it.
Yes, I now have a clean and unmarked copy of my witness statement.
Thank you. Could you please turn to page 21?
Yes.
And can you turn to line 96, starting at the quotation, "Do you know?" Could you please read just that sentence?
Do
Or
you
the-
know Do you know how many qualified applicants I overlooked to hire you? People who graduated at the top of their class from Ivy League universities?
Thank you. That's all. And moving on, you said that you started to suspect foul play within Lush regarding Drufo. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you said that you had been concerned about Drufo's safety for quite a while. Is that correct?
Yes.
But you made no attempt to contact any sort of outside authorities, healthcare, or government officials. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. However, my superiors looked over my research and they should have alerted the upper management about such concerns.
Okay. And you were also put on a performance improvement plan. Is that correct?
Yes, after my concerns about Drufo, I was put on a performance improvement plan.
And it got so bad at Lush that when things started to get hard for you and the environment became a little bit hostile, you immediately started to look for another job. Is that correct?
I felt I was not
Objection, assuming facts, not evidence.
Response to that, Mr. Dudzik?
I'm just trying to build the foundation of her looking to get a job at Terrace Greenery, which is where she is currently employed.
Reply, if any, Ms. Hayes?
No.
All right, the court's going to overrule the objection. It's cross-examination of the witness. There's a little bit of leeway with that. You may continue, Mr. Dudzik.
Thank you.
Could you please repeat the question?
Yes, sorry. So when these things started to happen at Lush negatively towards you, you immediately started to look for another job. Is that correct?
I felt it was not benefiting Lush Fertilizer or me if I continued to stay on when my performance reports were coming back negatively.
And thank you. And after your conversation with Blake Doncourt, you described yourself as confused and betrayed by someone you were extremely close with. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. However, I wanted Blake to speak to my superior because of my valid concerns about Drufo.
Right. And when you were fired, you got a job at Terrace Greenery, right?
Yes.
But there wasn't any way for you to pass any sort of Lush trade secrets to Terrace Greenery. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And is that because of, that's because of your non-compete agreement, right?
Yes.
And would you please view Exhibit 5?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. So you recognize this document, correct?
Yes, I do.
And this is a fair and accurate representation of your non-compete agreement with Lush?
Yes.
And Your Honor, do you see this, or should we hold this up to the screen?
I've seen a copy of it before. I don't have it in front of me right now. So if you want to hold it up, you could.
Okay. So I don't currently have a paper copy. I just have it digitally. So
that's all right. I've seen it before in my preparation. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Permission to continue?
Please.
Please. Okay. And could you please explain exactly what this is?
It is a copy of my non-compete agreement with Lush Fertilizer.
Your Honor, permission to enter Exhibit 5 as evidence?
You're offering to admit it, positioned by the plaintiff?
This court case has already been closed in a court of law. There's no need to expand on the matter.
So what's your objection to the admission of the document?
That it's relevant. It's already been closed before.
All right, you're saying it's relevance. Reply to that, Mr. Dudzik.
Your Honor, I'm not trying to build on this case any more than it's already been built on. It has been closed in the court of law. I'm just trying to enter it as evidence so we can use that to try to build Ms. Durst's case in regards to Drufo.
All right, what the court will do is overrule the objection. While the case may have been closed related to the NDA, it still is relevant to the proceedings before us, given the potential bias or motive of the witness, and also related to the nature of her relationship with the business. So the court's going to overrule the objection and admit Exhibit 5.
Thank you. And so this stated you couldn't give any sort of Lush's information to Terrace. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And would you say you're still pretty angry with the mistreatment you received at Lush?
I wouldn't say I'm angry about it. I found a new job quite successfully, and I don't have any reason to harbor ill will towards Lush Fertilizer.
But you're not happy with them?
No, I have no reason to harbor ill will towards them.
Okay. And are you still a little bit upset about Blake's betrayal, though?
No, I found a new job quite successfully, and I have no new reasons to harbor ill will towards them.
Did you ever feel upset with Blake?
I felt confused after he wouldn't speak to Jerry about my valid concerns on Drufo.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Durst, why did you receive the internship at Lush Fertilizer?
Because I applied and because I have a bachelor's in chemical engineering.
Okay. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Recross examination based on that.
Your Honor, a brief recross. Do you still have your witness statement in front of you?
No, I do not. Yes, now I have access to the witness statement.
Could you please turn to page 21?
Yes.
Thank you. And could you read starting right?
Objection, improper impeachment.
With respect to reading it, Mr. Dudzik, what's your response to that?
I'm just trying to just completely reinforce the fact that a qualified applicant many qualified applicants were overlooked.
I know why you want to do that, but the legal basis for your ability to have her read from a document that has not yet been admitted into evidence. And by that, I mean read out loud. What's the basis for that?
I will withdraw. Thank you.
All right. You can withdraw that. She can't read from a document that's not been admitted. She can read the document to herself to refresh her recollection, but she can't read from the document because it hasn't been admitted. You may continue, Mr. Dudzik.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Durst. The plaintiff may call their next witness, and Mr. Durst is excused.
I call Dakota Weirs to the stand, and before I continue, Your Honor, could you confirm that my audio is at an acceptable level?
It's a little low. I'm an old man, Mr. Lemon, and sometimes I don't hear quite so well. So if you could somehow turn that up a little bit, that'd be great.
Yes, Your Honor.
I put my computer at about as high as it can go.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll try my best.
All right.
Good morning, Ms. Weirs. Could you please state your full name and spell the last for the court?
Dakota Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. Can you tell the court why you're here today?
I'm here to sue Lush Fertilizer for using Drufo on their products.
What is your current occupation?
I'm currently unemployed.
Have you had a previous occupation?
Yes, I was landscaping technician at Haven Landscaping.
How long did you work for Haven Landscaping?
Since I was about 14 years old.
And how old are you now?
I'm 20 years old.
What responsibilities did you have while at Havens?
Well, because I was too young to operate the machinery, my work included spreading seed and fertilizer.
Hang on for a second, Mr. Lemon, you're still a little bit difficult to hear. If there's some way for you to either get closer to a mic, that'd be great. I mean, I can hear you, but it's not very strong.
Yes, Your Honor. Is this good?
That's a little better.
Okay.
That's a little better.
What types of fertilizers did you work with while at Havens?
I worked with various fertilizers, including Lush Fertilizer.
While working with these, did you wear long sleeves, pants, and gloves?
Well, my boss recommended that we wore long sleeves and long pants, but it was often too hot to wear such articles of clothing.
Did any of your colleagues who use Lush Fertilizer follow these safety precautions?
No, they also felt it was too hot as well.
Were any of your colleagues diagnosed with the same condition that you have?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Do you regret not wearing protective gear?
Absolutely. My cancer has taken so much from me.
Was it the use of Lush Fertilizer while you were at Havens that led to your condition?
Yes.
Objection, opinion, Your Honor.
With respect to that, your response, Mr. Lemon?
I'll move on.
Well, does that mean you're withdrawing the question?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then the previous answer is stricken. The question is withdrawn. You may continue.
What condition do you have, Ms. Weirs?
I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Could you further explain what that is and what effect it's had on you?
So non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a form of non-hereditary cancer that causes various symptoms. I get frequent chest pains. I I have short-term memory loss. I have enlarged lymph nodes. I have shortness of breath and fatigue, and I find myself to bruise easy. I could honestly go on with all the symptoms.
Prior to being diagnosed with this condition, what did you do?
Well, I was in my National Honor Society at my school. I was president of my school student government. I volunteered in my community as often as I could, and now I can barely help around my own house. And I was very passionate about the piano. And I'm sorry, you see, the piano was a very sentimental part of my life because my grandfather taught me when I was younger. And ever since his passing, then I decided to pursue the piano because it's what he loved, and I loved it too. And from that, I mastered it, and I even got accepted into Juilliard on a full ride scholarship to play the piano, but all of that was taken.
Objection, narrative, Your Honor.
Response, Mr. Lemon?
I did not, the question was not narrative, the witness's answer was narrative.
Reply, if any.
Yes, the answer was narrative.
The court's going to overrule. It's really close to being narrative, so I'm going to give her the leeway, but clearly the answer is certainly expanded from the question, but I'll overrule the objection at this point.
Thank you, Your Honor. Why won't you be able to attend Juilliard, Ms. Weirs?
I'm unable to complete such a rigorous course with my condition, and I can no longer play the piano due to my shortness of breath and fatigue, and I find myself to bruise easy on the bench.
Ultimately, what effect has non-Hodgkin lymphoma had on your life?
While my physical and mental health have severely depleted, and I just feel like I've lost my grandfather all over again.
I'm sorry to hear that, Ms. Weirs. So what's your impression of the reason behind your condition?
My condition was caused by lush fertilizer.
Objection, opinion, Your Honor.
With respect to that, Mr. Lemon?
I am simply asking her perception of it.
All right. Your reply, if any, Ms. Clint?
She is giving a medical opinion on her diagnosis.
What the court's going to do, I find that there's a lack of foundation for her to render that opinion. She can certainly testify about how she felt before and how she felt after, but the idea of connecting this, it needs to be established through means other than simply the witness testifying to that, unless she's got some advanced degree or knowledge. So the court's going to sustain the objection.
Yes, Your Honor, I'll move on. Your Honor, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 1?
Which is?
The label for lush fertilizer.
I know that I've seen it in part of my preparation, but if you have a copy, you can show it to me. If not, I'll know what it is based upon my review.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Ms. Weirs, do you have a clean and unmarked copy of Exhibit 1?
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify what Exhibit 1 is?
It's the packaging of lush fertilizer with its ingredients list.
And did you see this packaging while at Havens?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer Exhibit 1 into evidence. The authenticity of this exhibit has already been stipulated.
All right. Defense, Ms. Clint?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 1 is admitted.
On this label, what do you notice?
Well, all I notice is that there's merely a suggestion to wear protective equipment.
Is there a reason given for the suggestion?
Not to my knowledge, no. Doesn't appear so.
Could you please read out loud what is under the title causes, starting on causes and ending on irritation?
Caution causes eye irritation.
So were you under the impression that eye irritation was the only hazard?
Yes, that's all it says.
Are there any warnings under that title that elucidate the clear dangers of the Drufo used in the product?
No.
If there were warnings, would you have acted differently from how you acted with the fertilizer?
Absolutely. My cancer has taken so much from me.
Could you please read out loud the first sentence of the user safety recommendations?
As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin.
It states as with any fertilizer, but does it state anything showing a clear difference between lush fertilizer and any fertilizer due to the
No.
use of Drufo?
No, it does not.
Could you please read out loud the caution part of the label, starting with avoid and ending on clothing?
Avoid contact with eyes of clothing.
Does this part tell you to avoid clothing?
No,
What is this label trying to tell you, the consumer, in terms of protective clothing?
to be honest, I'm a bit confused as to what it's asking me to do.
So from your perspective, Lush Fertilizer didn't in any way, shape, or form advise you of the dangers of receiving JUFO or of receiving cancer from JUFO.
Yes, and that is why I'm here today.
And they also gave you unclear safety recommendations.
Yes.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Weirs. Let's begin by discussing your enjoyment of playing the piano. You play the piano, correct?
Well, I used to play the piano, but now I am no longer able to play such a passion of mine.
And you received a scholarship from Juilliard, correct?
Yes, but unfortunately, I won't be able to attend.
But though you did not take the scholarship, it still stands for 2 years, correct?
Yes, but I don't know where my condition will leave me in 2 years, unfortunately.
Although you do not know, your doctor has hope you will recover before then, correct?
My doctor says that my condition could go either way.
Now let's discuss your landscaping career. You have experience in landscaping for many years, correct?
Yes, I worked at Haven Landscaping since I was about 14.
And you stated that you love the outdoors and feeling the wind hitting your bare face, correct?
I do. I absolutely adored the outdoors, but now I can barely leave my own couch.
So you would not wear protective face coverings while landscaping, correct?
My boss recommended that we wore it, but it was often too hot to do such.
And for clarification, your boss instructed you to wear a face covering as well, correct?
Yes, he recommended it, but like I said, my colleagues and I thought it was often too hot to wear such a face mask, and we weren't aware of the clear dangers that would happen if we had not.
But you were also supposed to wear long sleeves, pants, and gloves while working with the fertilizer, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, leading question.
Overruled cross-examination.
Like I said before, it was too hot, but if we had known the clear dangers that JUFO presented, we would have done things differently.
You were told to wear protective clothing because of the chemicals, correct?
My boss recommended that we wore protective clothing, but like I said, it was too hot and we weren't aware of the clear dangers JUFO presented.
But it would be reasonable to assume that a fertilizer could be harmful, correct?
Well, the majority of fertilizers also have warnings upon their packaging of the clear dangers. JUFO or Lush Fertilizer did not.
So you use several other fertilizers and lawn chemicals, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And these other fertilizers and lawn chemicals could have been potentially harmful as well, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, out of scope.
Pardon me, I think the objection was beyond the scope. I think, Mr. Lemon, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Clint?
She just was talking about the potential harm that could be caused because she is claiming that JUFO is harmful, and I am just simply asking her to elaborate on the other fertilizers and chemicals that were used.
Mr. Lemon, pardon me, reply, if any?
She simply doesn't have the knowledge to determine whether if other fertilizers are dangerous, but she has the knowledge to determine if Lush Fertilizer is dangerous because her condition was caused by Lush Fertilizer.
Thank you. What the court's going to do is sustain with respect to the foundation as to what the witness may know about the cause and effect of other fertilizer.
I'll proceed.
You may continue.
You state that your boss recovered Exhibit 1 as a label during your time of use, correct?
Yes, he found the label for me.
Please refer to Exhibit 1. It has already been admitted into evidence. Weirs, do you have a clean and unmarked copy in front of you?
Yes, I do.
This label directly states to use protective clothing with exposed skin, a face mask, and to wash your hands before and after use, correct?
It says it's merely a recommendation.
But the label does directly state this, correct?
It says it's recommended to wear a face mask, but there are no warnings stating why I should wear such face mask.
Does it say that there is a caution?
There's a caution to eye irritation, but it does not, I don't believe a mask would prevent eye irritation.
You suspect you received non-Hodgkin lymphoma because you and your sister Skylar experienced similar things except for the landscaping job, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And since non-Hodgkin's is a form of non-hereditary cancer, then it's not inherited.
You say Skylar has done extensive research on Drufo, correct?
Yes, she's written an article about Drufo.
And a yes or no answer will suffice on the next question. Your sister Skylar is testifying against you today. Is that correct?
Yes, she is.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, were you under the impression that the only hazard was eye irritation?
Yes, that's all that the packaging says.
And you weighed the consequences of eye irritation and decided not to follow your boss's instructions?
Well, I did not contract any eye irritation, but I did contract cancer.
And had you been aware of the risks of getting cancer, would you have still not have worn the eye protection and the clothing?
If I had known that I was going to obtain cancer from this fertilizer, I would have done things much differently.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Recross examination based on that.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Weirs may be excused as a witness. I believe that concludes the plaintiff's case. Will the defense be calling witnesses?
Your Honor, the defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand.
All right.
Please state and spell your last name for the court.
My name is Skylar Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
Ms. Weirs, what is your job?
I'm an investigative journalist for the Rationalist magazine. I'm also a waitress, but my true passion lies in journalism.
What type of magazine is Rationalist?
Rationalist is a science, education, and advocacy magazine. We try to encourage our readers to read up on every single scientific fact before coming to a conclusion on a highly politicized topic. For example, with my Drufo article, I read every single fact there was to know about Drufo before coming to my conclusion on whether or not it was safe.
What types of articles do you write for Rationalist?
My most prominent articles include individual health and corporate policy, and several of these articles have been published in high-profile scientific magazines.
How is the background in the research of individual health and corporate policy relevant to this case?
I spent an entire year researching Drufo. This included reading publications done by agri-tech companies, reviewing journals that were referenced in these studies, as well as tracking down information from the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. This led to me writing an article that questioned the link between Drufo and cancer.
When did you write this article about Drufo?
I wrote this article before Dakota was even diagnosed with cancer, and so my beliefs about Drufo are in no way associated with what happened to my sister.
Where did you get your education from, Ms. Weirs?
I do not actually have a college degree.
What are your qualifications then?
My knowledge includes general knowledge as well as historical and statistical information. The amount of time that I've spent researching Drufo and agri-tech in general is something that a college classroom never could have given me.
What was your role in this case?
I was retained by the defense to talk on commercial agriculture and GMOs, which includes agriculture and horticulture.
What exactly is modern agri-tech?
This is the use of technology to improve efficiency of agricultural products.
Your Honor, the defense offers Skylar Weirs as an expert witness regarding modern agri-tech and the effect of pesticides pursuant to Rule 702 to share her opinion on the safety of pesticides, herbicides, and other agri-tech products.
Plaintiff.
Yes, a quick voir dire, Your Honor.
You may.
You have no formal education, correct?
I do not, however, the amount of research that I've done on this topic is something that a college classroom couldn't have given me and gives me a different perspective.
Okay, and yes or no question, or yes or no answers on all these questions is appreciated. You never conducted a study of your own?
I did not.
And you have zero experience working in the agri-tech industry?
No, but I have done extensive research.
You've been writing on the topic for less than a year.
Yes.
Your research for your writing, the research used for your writing is all data you found from other experts,
It is.
and you have no formal expertise in interpreting and validating scientific data.
No, however, I have done extensive research on all of these topics.
And you have no experience in the scientific field.
No, but I've done enough research to know well enough.
Okay, just for clarification, Your Honor, while she may be able to attest to the conduct of agritech industry itself, she lacks scientific expertise to testify on any scientific conclusions. So I asked you to be clarified that she is an expert in agritech business journalism, but not in any of the scientific aspects of the field.
So let me make certain I understand. I take it then you have no objection to her being qualified as an expert in the field of agritech and the business model. What you're objecting to is her providing any expertise in a scientific realm. Is that correct?
Yes, no scientific,
Right.
yes.
Thank you. Your response to that, Ms. Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, Ms. Weirs has spent considerable time researching agritech companies. She has reviewed publications written by those companies, research studies.
Hang on, Ms. Green. There's no objection to her testifying about agritech as a business. The issue has to do with her scientific background. Can you focus on that?
Yes, business, not scientific.
No, I'm talking about Ms. Greenfield now. Can you focus in on her qualifications to be considered as an expert to render opinions in science?
Yes. She has testified to her knowledge in the information maintained by the USDA and NASDA. She has testified to her vast skill that has consumed her life. Her work is highly regarded by a number of publications. A court may qualify an expert witness based on knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education. Despite how Skylar lacks one of those qualities, one of those factors, her other factors are sufficient to establish that the witness has specialized knowledge in the science of agritech beyond that held by an average juror pursuant to Rule 702.
All right. Ms. Greenfield, what you're telling me is that any reporter who spends any time involved looking into things or investigating things, that reporter could then be qualified as an expert in the area that they're investigating. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that Skylar has spent so much time every day consuming her life, dedicating her life to studying these scientific topics. So surely she should have qualifications past that held by an average juror pursuant to Rule 702.
All right, what the court's going to do is I'm going to permit her to testify as an expert in the field of agritech and the business aspect of this. I have significant concerns about her ability to be qualified as an expert with respect to the science aspect of this, because it seems that she's being offered because she's done reading on this, which would literally make any of us experts if we read a lot about a subject matter. But given the circumstances of this matter in this case, I'm going to permit her to be qualified as an expert in the science area, and she may be entitled to render opinions in there, although I do think that some of her background is not strong. With that in mind, you may continue, Ms. Greenfield.
May I ask a clarifying question, Your Honor?
Sure.
Is Skylar able to testify to how Drufo works based on what she knows about the product?
I believe I've indicated that she has limitations with that, but I have permitted her to testify as an expert as it relates to the chemical aspects, that is the science aspects of Drufo. So she may proceed and may render opinions on that.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
You bet.
You say you came to your expert conclusion through your research with Rationalist. Tell us more about this.
Recently, Lush Fertilizer has been the subject of many conspiracy theories in the agritech community. And since Rationalist is a science education magazine, we do work with that. So I decided to research that a little bit more.
How so?
People that are hesitant to accept change are spending millions of dollars to destroy Lush's reputation because they know that Drufo can overpower their businesses.
What do you mean when you say Drufo could overpower their businesses?
We know that Drufo is a bonding agent, which means that less fertilizer and pesticides need to be applied to reach the desired effect.
And how does this work?
Drufo bonds top grass to the active ingredients in Lush's fertilizer.
Objection out of scope. The witness has not been rendered use of science.
The court's going to overrule. I believe I have permitted her to be qualified as an expert in this field, even though I've expressed my reluctance, but I will admit her and I will overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you please repeat how this works?
Drufo bonds to top grass bonds the top grass to the active ingredients in Lush's fertilizer, which is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. This prevents the ingredients from washing away quickly, so Drufo doesn't need to be applied as often as other fertilizers.
And what are the benefits of that?
These chemicals don't need to be applied as often to reach optimum yield. Basically saying that Lush minimizes the nitrogen penetration, which is very important for the environment.
Why is minimizing nitrogen penetration important?
The nitrogen is less likely to contaminate groundwater and waterways. This contamination can contribute to cancer, adverse reproductive outcomes, and other bad things for the environment. So if you use products like Drufo, you can minimize nitrogen penetration, which is a very, very good thing.
Okay, so Drufo minimizes nitrogen penetration. What about the pesticides in fertilizer though?
Lush actually has a lot less pesticides than other grass seed products, which means less glyphosate and arsenic.
And why is less glyphosate and arsenic important?
Because there's a much clearer link between these pesticides and cancer.
Ms. Weirs, in your expert opinion, did you reach any conclusions about this case?
Yes, in my expert opinion, Lush is just as safe, if not even more than competitors' products. Dakota is blaming the one product that was designed to keep her safe from these harmful chemicals. And Drufo did not. Drufo kept Dakota safe. It didn't cause anything.
You've chosen to take a side against your sister. Why?
I'm not here taking a side against my sister. I'm here to stand with my research. I know my mission is right, and I'm here to stand on that side.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes. Just to clarify, she has been rendered an expert in all. I'm sorry, I don't think I quite understood what she has been rendered an expert in.
Both the business aspect under the agritech and the science part of this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Since you have no formal education or degrees, are all the topics you decide to write on classified as opinion pieces?
Yes, but the amount of research that I do prevents me from putting a personal opinion in my articles.
So everything you have written on Drufo or other agritech related issues are all considered opinion pieces?
Yes, but the research that I do keeps opinion out of it.
Have you ever written articles concerning UFOs, anti-vaccinations, the flat earth model, or other conspiracy theories or pseudosciences?
Yes, I have.
Do you believe in these things?
As I said, all of my research I've done all of my research on it, and I keep a personal opinion out of my articles.
So you admit that you may undermine your scientific integrity for reasons such as financial gain or career furtherment, correct?
No.
But okay. Thank you, Ms. Weirs. Was the decision to testify today based on your current economic status?
No.
However, you are struggling financially at the moment due to your gambling problem, correct?
I am, but nothing that I have to do in this case has anything to do with my financial problems.
But you're aware, Ms. Weirs, that an expert witness such as yourself are compensated for testifying.
I am, but I'm here to stand with something that I believe in, not for the money.
Okay. With all that being said, would your career and your journalistic reputation benefit if Drufo was hypothetically proven non-carcinogenic?
It could, but that's not why I'm here.
Okay. You call Drufo an effective pesticide, but you also say pesticides by definition are poison. So would you consider Drufo as a poison?
No.
By definition, you consider pesticides as poisons
Drufo
in your witness statement.
Drufo is much safer than the average pesticide.
Is Drufo a pesticide?
Yes.
And did you consider pesticides poison?
Yes.
So would you consider Drufo a poison?
Drufo is much safer than the average pesticide.
A yes or no answer will suffice.
Yes.
Do you have any degrees or other forms of knowledge that would give you the authority to describe research as inclusive at best?
Could you repeat the question?
Do you have any degrees or other forms of knowledge that would give you the authority to describe your research as inclusive at best?
I have done extensive research on.
I'm sorry, was there an objection made?
Yes, Your Honor. Objection argumentative.
Overruled.
Because Drufo is, and by your own definition, poison, and you possess nothing to label research as inclusive, would it be possible that Drufo can cause cancer?
I do not believe Drufo causes cancer.
A yes or no answer will suffice. Because Drufo is, by your own definition, poison, and you possess nothing to label this research inconclusive, would it be possible that Drufo can cause cancer?
It could be possible, but I do not believe so.
Okay. I'm under the impression that Drufo is a grass seed product. Is that correct, Ms. Weir?
Yes.
As far as I understand, grass seed products contain synthetic nitrogen. Is that correct?
Yes, but Drufo contains less synthetic nitrogen.
Synthetic nitrogen has been proven to cause cancer. One of the active ingredients in Lush fertilizer is synthetic nitrogen. Could the nitrogen from Lush fertilizer be the cause of Dakota Wires condition? Yes or no will suffice.
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. How does Drufo affect the pesticides in fertilizer?
Drufo lessens the effect of pesticides because it's applied less often.
And how does Drufo affect the nitrogen penetration?
Drufo lessens nitrogen penetration because it reduces the solubility of Lush, making it less likely to contaminate groundwater and waterways.
What is your expert opinion on the safety of Drufo?
In my expert opinion, Drufo is much safer than the average fertilizer.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Recross examination based on that.
No further questions.
Thank you. This witness may be excused then. Thank you very much, Ms. Weirs. The defense may call their next witness.
The defense calls Blake Doncourt to the stand.
All right. You may
Please
inquire.
state and spell your name for the court.
Blake Doncourt, Doncourt. Can you hear me? Is my audio working?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
Please state and spell your last name for the court.
Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
What is your profession and involvement in Lush?
I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer.
And how does Lush manage its profits?
We're quite a successful company, so we're able to donate 10% of our annual profits to charities hoping to reduce the world's global nitrogen footprint. We have also created state and national legislation, educating others on how to protect the earth, and we have created our own charity that cleans up polluted areas of the world's ocean.
Have you or Lush ever been recognized for your contributions to the environment?
Yes, we both have. I was recently nominated by the United Nations for the Champions of the Earth Award, and Lush won the prestigious SEAL Award for Business Sustainability.
As a company and the CEO, what are your values?
Safety will always be a top priority for us, safety of both our consumers and of the earth.
And how do you personally feel about your company?
I'm very proud of our company and how successful we've been. I'm also very proud of the fact that I started it from nothing and how successful it's been and how we have greatly helped the earth.
Would you ever value money over safety?
No, what kind of absurd question is that? Safety will always be a top priority for me.
What are your qualifications for your research?
This entire Lush Fertilizer is my career. It's my job, and I've been doing it all of my adult life.
And how long have you had this company?
I founded this company in 2000.
What about Lush makes it different from other fertilizers?
We have a chemical bonding agent called Drufo, which allows you to use the product less often, and it'll still be just as effective as other fertilizers.
And based on your research, do you think Drufo is harmful?
No, our extensive research before we put the product out in the market did not find anything dangerous in our product.
Why isn't there a warning label?
All of our research and toxicology reports before we put the product out in the market did not find anything that would require a warning label, neither did the EPA.
And if there was proper science and research to support possible danger, what would you have done differently?
At a minimum, we would have put a warning label on the bag, but if our product truly was dangerous, I never would have allowed it out into the market.
Weir's claims you do not bake the fertilizer in order to save money for your ex-Morgan. And what do you think about this?
These claims are absurd and false. I make more than enough money to pay my ex-husband large amounts each month and make enough money to support me and my new partner, as well as make significant contributions to charities.
So why didn't you bake your products?
We don't bake our products because we have no reason to believe we needed to. We have no scientific evidence that states that our products were dangerous, so baking it was overkill. We had no reason to believe that we needed to bake our products.
Was Lush ever advised of possible risks?
Carson Durst claims that these risks were carefully worded so that there would be no paper trail, but I never saw any potential risks in our product.
Explain your connection with Carson Durst.
He was a close family friend and was an intern at my company. It was his job to research and look into our products to find anything potentially dangerous in our products and follow up on them and do more tests to see if there was anything dangerous in our products. If he did find anything dangerous in our products, it was his job to do more studies and tests on them and then report them back to me. If he did find anything dangerous in our products, he had every opportunity to come to me personally to announce these concerns.
Ever since Carson Durst has left Lush, what is his new occupation?
Currently works for Terra's Greenery Incorporated, our biggest competitor.
Ms. Doncourt, please shift your attention to Exhibit 5 as it has already been admitted into evidence. Ms. Doncourt, do you have a clear and unmarked copy?
Yes.
Please describe what is Exhibit 5.
It's a non-compete agreement. It's a signed document between me and Carson Durst, stating that no trade secrets will be revealed. It essentially keeps our product safe.
Is this a standard for Lush employees?
Yes, it is.
And just to clarify, who signed this?
It was me, Blake Doncourt, and Carson Durst.
And what would happen if Carson Durst disclosed any information to Terra's Greenery?
If given enough evidence, we could take legal action.
And do you sympathize with Mrs. Weirs?
Yes, of course I do. I feel terrible that she's sick, but I'm confident that my product had nothing to do with this.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Once again, can you confirm that my audio is at an acceptable level?
Well, acceptable is kind of an interesting question, Mr. Levin. It's a little hard to hear you. I can hear you, but it's a little hard.
Mr. Doncourt, how involved were you in the creation of the Lush fertilizer label?
In the label, I was overseeing the entire production of the product.
Can you please direct your attention to Exhibit 1 or to the Lush fertilizer label as it has already been admitted into evidence?
Mm-hmm.
Did you look over the final product before it was released to the public?
Yes, of course I did.
Was the line "Eyes of Clothing" right after the caution section on the label mistyped, misprinted, or otherwise mistaken?
Are you speaking to the caution causes eye irritation line?
No, I'm speaking to the line after that.
The avoid contact with eyes of clothing?
Yes.
I believe it was a misprint. I apologize about that. I believe it says avoid contact with eyes and clothing.
So you didn't really look over it carefully.
I'm very busy. I'm running a multi-million-dollar business. So, it's not my job to make sure that everything is spelled correctly. Of course, I did extensively look over my product and its packaging. But this should have been something that was caught by, a few people lower down in the, hierarchy of our business.
Thank you, Ms. Doncourt. Did Carson come into your office with concerns?
No, he did not. He came into concerns about Jerry Langley and how he was not being treated properly, but he never came into my office with concerns about Drufo and its safety. I didn't hear anything until after he left his job with us.
And did you listen to his concerns on Gary Langley?
No, it's not my job. If he felt that he was being treated unfairly, he should have gone to his supervisor and talked about that. I care deeply about Carson Durst, but it's not my job to make sure that he feels that he is, completely, if he feels like he's being disrespected, he should have gone to Jerry directly about that.
Moving on, was a second study on Drufo ever done?
I believe we had many in-house studies done on Drufo and its safety.
Thank you. Again, moving on. Was the decision not to bake Drufo financially motivated?
I mean, a little bit. We do need to be a sustainable business, but overall, we had no scientific evidence to believe that we needed to bake our products. It didn't make sense to bake our products. We had no scientific evidence to believe we needed to.
And to your knowledge, would baking the Drufo alleviate any risk at all of carcinogenic properties?
Yes, it would have relieved any risk, but we had no reason to believe there was a risk.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Pardon me, redirect.
No, Your Honor.
All right. You may step down then, ma'am. Thank you. The defense may call their next witness.
Your Honor, I move to call Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
All right.
I'm sorry?
You may.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Williams, could you please state and spell your name for the court?
My name is Dr. Devin Williams, Williams.
And Dr. Williams, what is your job?
I lead the toxicology research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer. I am also the outgoing chair of the company's ethics committee.
And could you please explain what it is you research as a toxicologist?
I am a research toxicologist by training and work to understand how biological systems respond to environmental interventions. Now, whether that is alcohol and neurochemical pathways or inorganic compounds and agricultural enhancing organophosphorus products, I see myself as having an inherent responsibility to also consider the why and if beyond immediate proper objectives.
And would you say that you are experienced in your field of work?
Well, I started my career with Lush over a decade ago, and I've led the toxicology labs for 7 years. So I'd say, yeah, I'm well experienced.
And what are your qualifications?
My education from undergrad through PhD was completed at Colorado State University in Fort Collins. I also did a specialized post-PhD program in pharmacotoxicology at the University of Utah. My work has taken me to various states, but I primarily work in my home state of Colorado now. And I hold various accreditations that are all listed on my CV, including certifications in Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Utah.
Your Honor, I move to admit Dr. Devin Williams as an expert in the field of toxicology.
Plaintiff?
A brief voir dire, if possible.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. You have degrees in pharmacology and toxicology, correct?
That is correct.
And toxicology is essentially the study of poisons, correct?
Yeah, it is the study of how chemicals affect humans.
But you do not have any degrees specifically relating to agriculture, correct?
No, I do not.
And you do not have any specific medical degrees, correct?
I mean, the field of toxicology is highly medical. It is how chemicals relate to how it affects humans.
Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 702, at this time, I object to the tendering of this witness as an expert in the field of general toxicology and instead move to specify this witness as an expert in all toxicology except that relating to agriculture, as he has no formal education or experience there in that field.
Mr. Dudzik?
Your Honor, in no way are we trying to admit him as an agricultural specific witness. He is an expert in the field of toxicology and has worked in fields of toxicology for almost his entire professional career. He has a PhD as well as a post-PhD and has worked in multiple states.
Thank you. The court will overrule the objection and will admit Dr. Williams to testify as an expert in the field of toxicology, and he may render opinions within that. You may continue.
Your Honor. Dr. Williams, what sort of tests do you perform to ensure the safety of your products?
Due to my training and experience, I am qualified to conduct tests using biomolecular and biochemical markers that tell me if a substance is going to harm the average person and how to neutralize any harms should they arise.
And even though you deemed it to be safe, Drufo-based products are banned in other countries. Why is that?
While the EU and many countries that followed the EU's testings have banned Drufo, it is not because of cancer risks. Under the European Union Nitrate Directive, no new fertilizer formulations may be used that contribute more than incidental nitrate formulations in lab tests. Although DRUFO greatly reduces the amount of nitrates that accumulate in nature, there is still nitrogen in it.
And is the amount of nitrates in lush fertilizer any different from other fertilizers?
No, it is true that if you pour some into a petri dish and add just to the right bacteria, you will get just as many nitrates as with other fertilizers. But that's not what happens in nature. So the reality is that the EU bureaucracy chose to prohibit the use of fertilizers that reduce nitrates in nature because they don't do so under unrealistic laboratory conditions.
So, doctor, what are the benefits of DRUFO in a fertilizer?
Fertilizers enhance the growth of plants in two ways, either by adding nutrients or by enhancing the effectiveness of the soil by modifying its water retention and aeration. DRUFO does both. It is also more friendly to the environment. In the mid-20th century, fertilizer companies started using phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and zinc in their fertilizers, which increased the production rate up to 800%. However, this led to the problem known as eutrophication.
And what is eutrophication?
In layman's terms, it is a buildup of excessive nutrients in bodies of water caused by agricultural runoff. This causes mass algal blooms, which can kill environments, fish, and can be harmful to humans.
But what's different then about DRUFO?
DRUFO binds to the ingredients in the fertilizer to the grass and plants on which it is sprayed. Thereby, less fertilizer needs to be sprayed and less washes away into the soil. As a result, that basically cuts off the whole eutrophication process at the very beginning. I can certainly give you a more complex description of this whole process. You don't get a PhD for knowing things only at a superficial level. However, I'd have to use words like coagulated hydroxylapatite.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Mr. Dudzik?
Your Honor, he's explaining what DRUFO actually does in the lush fertilizer as opposed to what as opposed to other fertilizers that do not contain DRUFO in regards to the effect on the environment.
Objection is overruled.
Can I continue?
Yes, please do.
The point is, DRUFO is a revolutionary product that is far better for the planet and for people than the old generation of fertilizers.
And why is it, do you think, a few people who have used DRUFO have developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
It is simply probability. If you take a large group of people, a small number of them will develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma. That applies to any group of people. So when you take a large group of people who have used DRUFO, a small number of them will develop the disease. However, those same people might have developed the disease even if they had never used DRUFO. The data we have analyzed shows that people who use fertilizers with DRUFO have no greater likelihood at developing non-Hodgkin lymphoma as people who use other fertilizers.
And doctor, you read Casey Rogers' research and you believe that it's contrary to yours. Why do you feel like his studies are improper?
As a true
Objection, compound question.
Overruled.
As a true expert in this field, I believe Rogers' studies should be deemed invalid for numerous reasons. In my last statement, I compared users of fertilizers with DRUFO to users of other fertilizers. This is because you have to compare, metaphorically, apples to apples in order for a test to be deemed conclusive. Dr. Rogers in her study compared farm laborers to gardeners to people who aren't in those types of jobs.
And what is wrong with those types of comparisons in a study?
Well, that's comparing apples to oranges. Farm laborers and gardeners are exposed to a variety of different chemicals and environmental conditions that people who aren't in those types of jobs don't encounter. It is also possible that farm laborers and gardeners have a higher incidence of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. If that is true, then the groups of people Dr. Rogers looked at would have a higher incidence of non-Hodgkin lymphoma for reasons other than DRUFO. Next, Dr. Rogers' study has not been peer-reviewed, and more importantly, it has not been replicated.
And why do things like replication and peer review of studies matter?
History of science is replete with scientific results that can never be duplicated. This is because sometimes the one study was a fluke, sometimes, however, it is because the person doing the study was biased. Dr. Rogers' career has been focused on finding harmful effects caused by chemical agents. Dr. Rogers' financial bias in this case is far too great.
Objection, improper character evidence. The witness cannot speak to the character of Dr. Casey Rogers or use that as a way to prove how he is going to testify, how he has or will testify today.
What is your short form objection, counsel?
Improper character evidence.
All right. Mr. Dudzik?
Your Honor, Dr. Devin Williams, as an expert, is very knowledgeable in the proper conduct of studies, especially in toxicology. And Dr. Rogers, who does similar things to Dr. Devin Williams. Dr. Devin Williams is simply stating what he believes and what is proper.
Understanding that he certainly is an expert in the field of toxicology, but I don't believe I qualified him as an expert in the field of personal finance. So his opinions with respect to the financial status of Dr. Rogers is inadmissible. The court will grant the objection and strike his answer, that portion of his answer. You may continue.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Williams, do you still feel like replication and peer review are important?
Of course, they're of the utmost importance in any study.
And what else do you find to be wrong with Dr. Rogers' analysis?
Scientists have a tendency to tailor and focus on certain aspects of a study in order to produce or find the desired outcome. This is why in the field of science, we prefer to conduct our tests double-blind. What this means is the scientist doesn't know which test group they're working with, and therefore they only report on the true results. Dr. Rogers does not conduct any of her tests double-blind, and she always knew which fertilizers had which ingredients.
And doctor, in your expert opinion, was Drufo the cause of Mr. Dakota Weir's development of non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Absolutely not. There is no doubt that this is an incredibly sad case. It is horrible that the plaintiff has this awful disease. However, I can say with a degree of certainty that Drufo was not the cause. I know that ultimately, Mrs. Dakota Wires developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma based off of reasons other than a lush fertilizer containing Drufo.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. You previously testified that Drufo is banned in the EU, correct?
That is correct.
And are you aware that Lush is currently contesting that ban?
We have plans to.
And to the best of your knowledge, the effect of this lawsuit could impact that decision, right?
Sure.
And Dr. Williams, you are an employee at Lush, correct?
I do work at Lush, yes.
So the decision made today will impact your employer, yes?
Yeah, probably.
And by extension, a source of revenue for you, correct?
I think you could probably say that.
Yes or no will suffice for this next question. You were brought here today by your employee to prove that they weren't negligent.
Yes.
So to clarify, you were brought here by your employer who writes your paycheck to prove their innocence. A yes or no will suffice.
Yes.
As an employee at Lush, can you guarantee that there is less risk for using Drufo than other fertilizers?
Yes.
I apologize. Just to clarify your answer, as an employee at Lush, you are guaranteeing that there is less risk for using Drufo than other fertilizers.
All the data we have analyzed shows that, and I trust my data.
And Dr. Devin Williams, you gave a statement for this trial, didn't you?
I did.
And when you gave this, you were under oath.
Correct.
And after you gave it, you were able to review it and make sure it was accurate?
Yes.
Then you signed it indicating it was fully accurate, correct?
Correct.
And in this affidavit, you state that I apologize. Do you have a copy of your affidavit available to you?
Yes, can you give me 1 second?
Absolutely.
All right, yes, I do have it.
Can you please refer to lines 94 through 96, starting with in and other and ending with fertilizers?
Sorry, where should I start?
Oh, I apologize. I misspoke. Can you please begin at line 93 and starting with turning and ending with fertilizers?
Yes. Turning that analogy to Drufo, the data we have analyzed all came in below a normal confidence level. In other words, all the data we looked at was consistent with the users of fertilizers with Drufo, not having an elevated risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma compared to users of other fertilizers.
So you are agreeing that this is true, correct?
That is true.
And can you refer to the bottom of your affidavit, please?
Yes.
That is your signature, correct?
That is.
Objection,
despite-
Your Honor. This entire impeachment has been improper. What he just read was agreeing with what he stated in his cross.
So what is your short form objection, counsel?
Improper impeachment.
I'm going to overrule that. Although witnesses are not permitted to read from statements and evidence, the statements have to be admitted. Statements can certainly be shown them to refresh recollection, but statements cannot be read unless they've been admitted into evidence. But I'll overrule that objection primarily because the evidence is already before me. Thank you.
Your Honor, may I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
May I direct this to my opposing counsel?
No.
No, okay, I'm sorry. Can we please, can we please clarify what exactly is being impeached here?
No, well, that's not up to me. That's up to the counsel. She's asking the questions on cross-examination. If you believe that there is an improper question, you can object to that. You did. I overruled that objection. Now we're proceeding to the next question that's being asked.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet. Thank you.
And
Counsel?
in this, I apologize, Your Honor. And in this section, it does not say anywhere that you can guarantee, only that you can guarantee less risk, only that there is no elevated risk, correct?
Yes, the data shows no elevated risk.
So your previous statement was a contradiction to your provided affidavit, correct?
My previous, all that I have said is in my statement.
You previously testified that you can guarantee Drufo does not have any elevated risk, whereas in your witness statement, you cannot guarantee. The word guarantee specifically is not used. Is that correct?
The data we have looked at shows that there is no elevated risk.
A yes or no answer will suffice. Can you guarantee that Drufo has no elevated risk that compared to other fertilizers?
No.
Thank you. Moving on, Mr. Williams, a yes or no will suffice. In your expert opinion, should a fertilizer be properly warned against if there is any risk?
Yes.
And in your expert opinion, is a misspelling on a label proper warning?
I had nothing to do with the creation of the labels.
So can you please answer my question though? Is it, in your professional opinion, is a misspelling on a label proper warning?
I guess it wouldn't be like, sure, it's not.
Objection, Your Honor.
And
This
what
is
is the short?
This
Go
is
ahead.
outside the scope of the witness.
Response, pardon me, counsel.
Dr. Devin Williams is the chair of the ethics community on Drufo, and part of his responsibilities would be assumed to verify the safety of his products. He is also an employee at Lush and should know the basics of their operating statuses.
Overruled, cross-examination.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Yes or no will suffice. In your expert opinion, is a misspelling on a label improper warning?
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Redirect, Mr. Dudzik.
Yes, brief. Doctor, what position do you hold at Lush?
I'm the outgoing chair of the company's ethics committee.
And how would you say that your position affects your studies and the way you carry yourself at Lush?
Well, as I am on the ethics committee, I perform all of my tests in the utmost ethical manner.
Thank you. And based on your education and qualifications, would you say that you're experienced in all things toxicology?
Of course.
And so if you were fired for some unknown reason, do you think you could find another job?
I do not think I would have any problems with that.
Cool. Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination based on that.
A brief recross, Your Honor. Thank you. What is your other position at Lush, other than the chair of the ethics community?
Oh, I lead the toxicology research and development labs.
And is it true that your responsibilities there are simply analyzing data and not performing tests?
I perform tests and analyze data.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. I believe that concludes the defense case. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
The defense rests.
Defense rests. All right. Closing arguments then. Plaintiff?
Yes. One moment. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Lush Fertilizer should be held responsible for their negligence causing Dakota Wire's condition. And this goes with all of the instructions from the jury. The defendant manufactured a the defendant manufactured a fertilizer product containing a chemical compound known as Durfo. This first instruction has been verified by both parties and is an undisputed fact within the case. And the second requirement, the defendant was negligent by failing to exercise responsible care to prevent the product from creating a reasonable risk of harm to a person who might respond to use the product in a manner of defensive might be responsibly expected. Lush Fertilizer inadequately labeled the fertilizer containing Durfo and failed to exercise care towards the consumers of the products. Dakota Wire's testimony and Exhibit 1 have proven Lush Fertilizer's negligence with the confusing, poorly worded, and suggestive warning, with no text indicating the possible risk of cancer. Only some measly meanings of eye irritation. She also described in her testimony how if she would have known all the consequences of Durfo, she would have absolutely acted differently during her time working with the product. Lush's warnings never detailed the effects of Durfo that the ingredients could cause cancer. Additionally, Carson Durst's testimony proved that Lush Fertilizer was aware of these possible dangers. He described how management was knowledgeable of two different studies, one being an in-house study and another being external, and proved Durfo contained very possible carcinogenic properties. Just the mere fact they launched the study on safety on Durfo's safety is enough to prove Lush was well aware that their products could be harmful. Their own expert witness, Skylar Weirs, proved that her unbiased their own expert witness, Skylar Weirs, claimed that it is possible that Durfo can cause cancer and possibly did to Dakota. The plaintiff has proven from his unbiased account that the testimony that Lush Fertilizer did show clear signs of negligence with their label and inevitably caused consumers risk. So therefore, we must find the second instruction overwhelmingly fulfilled today by a preponderance of evidence. Thirdly, the plaintiff was one of the persons who defendants should reasonably have expected to use the product. With the truth of Dakota Wire's testimony, we can clearly see that Durfo was supplied to her with the intention of industrial use in order to perform her long-time yard work job. Evidence discussed in Dr. Casey Rogers' testimony proves that Lush Fertilizer has the probability to cause the plaintiff's conditions. Additionally, Dr. Rogers also disproved the defense's narrative that Mrs. Weir's condition could have possibly been caused by a different product because of their lawn pesticides that are actively created in Durfo, which she describes as not demonstrating the same carcinogenic properties. The defense might mention instruction number 8 and how Dakota failed to do something a reasonably careful person would do under the similar circumstances. However, Dr. Casey Rogers has proven that no reasonable person / worker in her circumstances would have worn a mask. In Structure 2.4, the plaintiff's damages were caused by the defendant's negligence. Due to the negligence of the defendant, the plaintiff is suffering from damages that could have inevitably been prevented. Dr. Casey Rogers herself proclaimed that reasonable workers would not wear a mask by using fertilizer. Furthermore, owners of Lush Fertilizer himself, Blake Doncourt, admitted the witnesses review that they did not bake their product due to financial reasons. Lush had many opportunities to exempt themselves from the liabilities towards Dakota Wire's illness, but they didn't. They had every opportunity to make more details on the side of the products, consult with concerned employees, launch additional studies to solidify their understandings of Durfo, or even bake the chemical compound to further security, but they didn't. Right now, there's just a young girl whose future has been taken away from her due to their negligence. If all the practices
are not stopped now, future consumers are being put in dangerous situations. The defense, sadly enough, caused the plaintiff's illness and should be held responsible with their negligence. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Does the defense desire to make closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may do so.
Your Honor, members of the jury, may it please the court. My name is Christopher Dudzik, and I represent Lush Fertilizer, the defendant in this case. We appreciate your attention throughout this matter, and we thank you for listening to both sides equally, as you promised you would do during jury selection. Today, you have heard Dakota Weir's negligence claim against Lush Fertilizer. The defense offers every condolence to Dakota for this horrible disease, but we completely disagree with her claim. We remind you that Dakota Weirs believes the sole cause of her cancer was Lush's failure to properly warn users about the product. You have seen that the plaintiff's claims and statements are full of neglect and grave irresponsibility. Now, after hearing all of the evidence from both sides, it's apparent that the only reasonable verdict to be returned is that of not liable. A great thing to keep in mind all throughout your life is irresponsibility has grave consequences, and this case is the perfect example of that. Dakota Weirs testified to great negligence in that she refused to wear any protective clothing, and no evidence has been proven that Drufo caused her cancer. So today you heard from the plaintiff herself, Dakota Weirs, and I want to try to paint a picture of Dakota's statement. She testified that the sole cause of her development of non-Hodgkin lymphoma is due to her use of Lush fertilizer containing Drufo. However, she admitted that she was told to cover her face and wear long clothes when she worked with these chemicals, but she chose comfortability over safety and reason. She was specifically warned and told by her boss to wear clothing. Although it may have been hot, Lush isn't responsible to enforce the guidelines they set. For example, a car manufacturing company isn't responsible for the injuries that a driver of their car suffered in a crash if they weren't wearing a seatbelt. This adult knew that they should wear a seatbelt, but chose comfort over safety and reason. The same happened with Dakota. She knew the proper safety procedures and still chose to neglect them. She's also testified to her usage and exposure to many other chemicals all throughout her job. You also heard about the lead product developer from Tara's Greenery, Carson Durst. Carson Durst testified that she worked her way up fast within Lush, but also stated that Lush hired her right after college at ASU. She also testified about her close relationship with the Donkerts all throughout her life, and you need to ask yourself if there's any other reason other than her expertise for Lush to hire Miss Durst. She spoke of her role in regard to the development of Drufo, and she said that she had the speculation of foul play within Lush. She had these major suspicions for months, but made absolutely no attempt to contact any sort of healthcare official or government agency. She wasn't qualified for her high-ranking position, and therefore, she was put on a performance improvement plan. Before she was even fired from Lush Fertilizer, she was already looking for a job with Lush's competitor, Tara's. Why? Because she knew she wasn't qualified, and she realized that the people she worked with were starting to find that out. When she was fired, she said herself that she was seething with the Doncourts and with Lush. We even had her read today that she's pretty still upset with her supposed mistreatment. She currently works for Tara's Greenery, Lush's biggest competitor, but due to her confidentiality agreement, she has no way to retaliate towards Lush Fertilizer or the Doncourts. But this case is the perfect opportunity for her to take a stance against these people she was and still is so upset with. She childishly turned this case into a personal grudge match with the intent of getting back at Blake and Lush while also convicting her biggest competitor. This case is overflowing with irresponsibility from the side of the plaintiff. The plaintiff is responsible to provide a preponderance of evidence that Lush is responsible for the allegations brought forth today. Seeing how that was not done, and based on all of the evidence brought before you today, the only reasonable verdict to be returned is that of not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Will there be rebuttal argument by the plaintiff?
Yes, and may I ask how much time I have?
Your Honor, I mean to make an objection. There was no move it was never asked to reserve any extra time for a rebuttal closing in the pretrial matters or before this council is closed.
Overruled. If there's any time left, they can have it for rebuttal because typically a plaintiff is permitted to rebut. So, I do not know if there's how much time is left. One of the timekeepers is going to have to address that.
26 seconds.
Well, it looks like, Ms. Hayes, you have 26 seconds on the clock here. So that's that's the length of your rebuttal argument. So,
Okay.
All right.
The other agriculture workers represented in Dr. Casey Rogers' study also did not wear masks, showing reasonable workers often do not wear personal protective equipment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, counsel and witnesses. That will then conclude this case. What I'm going to do is talk for just a little bit. I know our scoring panelists will have to put some figures down, and then they're going to want to speak to you a little bit. So I want to give them just some time to do that. First of all, I should tell you, I introduced myself more informally to you. My name is Paul King. I'm a retired district court judge. I served as a district court judge in Douglas County for 18 years. I retired in July of 2018. Before I was a district court judge, I was in private practice for a bit. I also served in the DA's office, primarily in Douglas County, for a pretty long period of time, about 20 years before I took the bench. Since I've been retired, I've been serving as a senior judge, which means I get assigned by the state to go out and cover other areas, other jurisdictions in which there may be a conflict. That is, a judge may have a conflict that requires another judge to be assigned, or there may be an overcrowded docket that they need extra help on. I just finished a case this week, actually, in Jefferson County, where I was in trial for the entire week. And while doing that, I picked up another case in Burlington. So that means I'll head out there probably toward the middle of March. I've been to Alamosa, El Paso County, Steamboat Springs, Jefferson County. I mentioned El Paso County. I've been to Ordway, so I've been to a fair number of places as a result of being a senior judge. Let me tell you what my thoughts are about what I've heard. First of all, I would thank you all for your service. I would also tell you that I really enjoy this process because you are all so polite and you are all so prepared. I wish the same could be said of the lawyers who appear in front of me on a more routine basis, because sometimes they are not as prepared as you are, and sometimes they are not as civil as you are, which is unfortunate, but I'm very grateful that you have learned that lesson, because it will carry you well throughout your life, no matter whether you decide to be a lawyer or not. I should also tell you a couple of things I thought about as I listened to the evidence. I did permit Skylar Weirs to be qualified as an expert for the purposes of this proceeding. But I think, frankly, if that would have been in a court in front of me in a real proceeding, that would not have happened. I don't believe that she had enough experience, enough education, enough background to be permitted to testify as an expert involving the science aspect of this. But given the nature of the proceedings today, I did permit that. A couple of thoughts that I would tell you about what I saw today. In my experience, having done this, I've been sitting as a judge in these mock trial competitions for some time. A lot of times what I notice, witnesses want to expand their answers. And I don't mean they're going outside of what their script is. What they'll be asked is a relatively routine yes or no question, and they want to expand that. There's several ways that you can address that. Sometimes I notice that you folks towards the end of your presentation would say, this is a yes or no question. Sometimes you can do that in several different ways. I heard a lawyer once do that in court in a very, very effective way, in which the witness, when answering the question, went on, and the lawyer then said, that's fine. Is there anything else that you want to tell me? Because I now want you to answer my question of you, which is somewhat effective, I thought. Or you can make an objection during the testimony that the witness is being non-responsive. Because if your question is a yes or no, requires a yes or no answer, and you get more, you can ask the court to strike the answer as being non-responsive to your question. A non-responsive objection comes primarily, almost always, from the person asking the question, not from the opponent. I also mentioned, I know that you folks have time limits and you're working under that, but boy, some of you folks went pretty quickly. And I say that because if you were in a court, there'd be a court reporter taking down what you're saying. And that poor court reporter has fingers that she has to utilize to take down your words. And sometimes they get pretty frustrated. So I understand under this kind of artificial environment that you have to kind of get in a lot of information in a relatively short time period. But as a practical matter, you want to speak as slowly as you can. And believe me, I'm as guilty as the next person of talking too fast, but you want to keep that in mind. I also want to mention that because this was done via Zoom, that I had a chance to observe you, and some of the backgrounds were interesting. I think what you want to keep in mind is if you're doing these things in a virtual platform, if you would, that the background that you have should be relatively bland, or you're going to show me that you've been reading all these incredibly great books and that's behind you on the wall. But you want to keep that in mind because since the whole COVID thing came out and our expansion of the use of remote or virtual courtrooms, it's pretty interesting to me sometimes what I see with lawyers, what I see with parties, and sometimes criminal defendants have a very interesting approach to presenting to a judge that I don't think they have thought through quite clearly. I also will tell you that I always think it's important. I think it's a good form to get into when you're addressing in closing arguments, opening statements. May it please the court, and then you acknowledge opposing counsel. I think it sets a tone that you are being respectful and you are you're acknowledging that you have an opponent. You're not agreeing with the opponent, but I think it's also just sets the tone, and I appreciate that when it's being done. Those are generally my comments. What I'm going to do is open it up to see if you folks have any questions of me, and then when you're done with that, if there are no questions, or if there are, I'll try to answer them. I'll then turn it over to the scoring panelists. So do any of you folks, the lawyers and or the witnesses, have a question that you'd like to ask me at this particular point in time about the case, about what it means to be a lawyer, what it means to be a judge, those kinds of things. So if you have any of those, now's your chance. Ms. Hayes?
I have a question about what you can, like what their personal expertise is. So would you usually grant it if they did have like a college education, or like when do you grant like certain I know this is a different situation, but certain expertise?
Well, the rule basically says you have to have more information than the average person. But the reporter in this case, that would literally apply to every reporter. Every reporter could be made an expert, and I would feel a little uncomfortable with that. Just because you read things doesn't necessarily mean that you're an expert. Lord knows we have enough conspiracy theories flying around this country right now from people who supposedly read that one political party has been eating babies or whatnot. They read that, but that does not make them an expert. All of a sudden they think they're an expert, and then we're all suffering the consequences of things like that. So in a court of law, it must be more substantial than just simply I've read things. The fact that she has some background or training in chemistry, that she may have conducted her own experiments, those kinds of things would help into play. But the idea that merely reading about something therefore makes you an expert probably would not cut it in a court of law. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh,
but,
that does. Thank you.
all right. And if someone else out there has a question, feel free. This is your only opportunity perhaps to talk to a district court judge in an informal setting. So if you've got a question or you have a comment or you want to say something, now's your opportunity.
Yes, I have a question.
Mr. Lemon.
How do you actually make your way up to becoming a judge?
Well, in Colorado, you have to basically be licensed to practice law, which means go to college, get a degree, go to law school, get a degree, take and pass the bar exam, practice law for about 5 years, and then you can apply if there's an opening. The openings will occur in your jurisdiction. In other words, if you live in Adams County, then you're going to apply in Adams County to be a judge. And your name will go before a committee. They will interview you, and if you're fortunate enough, they will then recommend your name to the governor along with 2 other parties. The governor then has 15 days or so from the date that your name goes to him to make the decision as to whether he will appoint you or not. And if you get appointed, then obviously you sit on the bench. If you're a county judge, You stand for retention every 4 years, which means you go on the ballot every 4 years, and the voters are asked to retain you in office. You don't campaign or run against someone else. The issue is, should you be retained? If you're a district court judge, it's every 6 years. And I think it's every 10 years or 8 years for the Court of Appeals. And I think it's 10 years for the Supreme Court. So that in a nutshell is how you get there. So you've got to go to law school after college. Law school is 3 years. And I know nowadays that's an expensive proposition. So that, I think, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
Ms. Camberos.
Thank you for presiding today. I apologize for the echo. How do you know for sure if a question has lapsed into narrative or not?
That's a good question. You know, I kind of have, that's a feel when, when the judge, if the witness has testified for 5 minutes and it's on the subject matter that the question was asked about, then I'm probably going to give them a little leeway, because if I sustain the objection, the lawyer's just going to go back and go over the same ground again. So I've got to be practical about this process. Now, if they're carrying on, if it's becoming a little more of a personal nature as opposed to being responsive to the question, I can then just say I can sustain the objection as to narrative. And plus, if the witness has got either not an axe to grind, but if they've got a point to make that's not really relevant, then I can certainly sustain an objection at that point in time. But when I look at that, I have to say to myself, okay, is this going to come in anyway? If it is, then whether it's asked as part of one question or 2 or 3 or 4, I'm probably not going to interfere with the answer at that point in time. That's generally how I would look at it as a judge. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
You bet. Anybody else out there?
What's your favorite part about being a judge?
You know, I was a trial lawyer for a long time, and being a trial lawyer is, first of all, a young person's game, because there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. And you can have things that when you put witnesses on the witness stand and you don't know what they're going to say, or they testify completely differently from what you thought they were going to say. So as a trial judge, I don't have to worry about that. What I have to do, I am the referee in the football game. I see holding, I throw the flag. So that's what I have to do. I don't have to make the decisions. I just get to listen to the evidence and make sure the jury has it, and they get to make the decision in the case. I have the best seat in the house when it comes to what's going on. And believe me, courtrooms can be interesting places. It can be 80% sheer boredom and 20% sheer terror sometimes, from the standpoint of what you hear, what you see in the courtroom. And there are times when I scratch my head as to what I've seen or what I've heard, because I never would have thought in 100 years that someone would say something on the witness stand. And that's great to be at my seat, because I'm not worried about the fact that I didn't think that was going to come out. I just get to listen to it. But being a judge is a really, really good job. I've really enjoyed my time on the bench. It's a chance for you to apply the law to the facts, and also try to be as fair and impartial to the parties as you can possibly be, guided by the law. And I've really enjoyed my time on the bench. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You bet. Anybody else out there in that virtual world there? All right, let me ask, are our scoring panelists able to then speak to our lawyers and witnesses here?
Yes.
Great. So I'll let you folks do that now. Mr. Cohn?
Thank you, Your Honor. Great job, everybody. I want to say that to start. My name is Dan Coombe. I'm a lawyer in Denver. I practice civil litigation, and having personally appeared in front of Judge King, I can say that he was much easier on you. But excellent job, everybody. Just a couple of notes that I'll go through briefly. The first thing that I think you guys could all work on, each side, is a theme. And I heard the theme, I want to say, for the first time in closing. I want to hear it in opening, and it should be the first thing out of your mouth. So instead of launching into the facts where you might lose a juror right away, for the plaintiff, say something like, this is a case about greed. Okay, now I'm interested. Why? Defense. This is a case about irresponsibility, not greed. And Chris, you did a great job of that in closing. But I would have liked to hear it earlier. And so throughout each witness, okay, so, or another theme that could have been like, about the warning, too little, too late. So each witness that comes up, so that warning was too little and the plaintiff's hurt now, so it's too late. So every time that comes across, the juror who may have tuned out, maybe thinking about their kids or something like that, they're like, oh, there's that again. So there's each time you hear that, you can come back to it. Everyone's preparation was fantastic. It's very, very clear that you all know exactly the facts of the case. So excellent preparation. Just a couple quick things. Caitlin, the narrative objection was fantastic because Abigail, you were by far the best witness. You did such a great job. And you were going on, and I was getting interested, and jurors were getting interested. But Caitlin, the narrative objection, whether or not it was sustained or not, it was done professionally, and it shut down the sob story. So that was well done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Peter, excellent doctor. Fantastic job. You come across perfectly as a doctor. So well done. And you know your stuff very, very well.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Lauren, you did an excellent job. It's very clear knew the case very, very well. My only thing to say would be to slow down, like the judge said. Otherwise, great tone, excellent job. Let's see, what else do I have? Rick, very clear that you know the case backwards and forwards. Change your tone every now and then. You have it's a very clear, concise voice, but in a long direct or in a long cross, you want to keep the jury interested. And so pause or, change your tone a little bit so that people can engage with that. Let's see, Mallory, you did such a great job on cross. That was really, really good because that's a hard witness. Like I said, Peter's a tough witness. Doctors are very tough. So wanted to congratulate you there. Katie, your direct was perfect. Really, I have no issue there. And directs are hard because you can't ask leading questions. And so I'm a defense lawyer, so it's almost impossible for me to not ask a leading question. I get that all the time. And so well done. With that, I know you guys are busy, so I won't keep going, but I want to say congratulations to everybody. Well done. And Judge, it's very nice to see you again.
Thank you, Mr. Koeman. I'm sorry I was hard on you earlier. I just don't remember that, which is a function of my age.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Ms. Tybo or Ms. Griffins?
First, like everyone said, you guys did phenomenal. It's so clear that you guys know this case, that you guys are prepared, and that's huge. Whether you guys decide to become attorneys or do something else, you guys are gaining very valuable skills. Public speaking, your critical thinking, your teamwork. This is all amazing. So kudos for you guys for doing it. I think for me, as you may be able to tell, I also struggle with speaking fast. So if you are one of those people, write a little note at the top of your piece of paper. I do it in every single trial that I'm in. I was a prosecutor for about 5 years out in Eastern Colorado, and now I'm doing some family law stuff. So keep those little reminders for you. It will give you that moment to remember, hey, it's okay. The jury's listening. You just got to take control of kind of how you're feeling in those moments. I think only thing that I would say for everyone, and this is something real life attorneys struggle with, don't plan on winning this case during cross-examination. It's not going to happen, right? Like, odds are you're probably going to have a really difficult witness. They're probably not going to give you that one piece of information that you really think is that slam dunk. So I think a couple of you had moments where you have a really critical piece of information that you want to get out, but you know they're just going to fight you on it. And so instead, the jury is not listening to what was that critical piece of information. We're just thinking, okay, these two people are arguing. Great. So if you have a critical piece, get us right up to the edge and then save it for your closing, you know? And then that way you get to draw the conclusions. You don't get to let that witness kind of take away that gotcha moment from you. But good job.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Ms. Tybalt?
My name is Ann. I'm not an attorney, but I thought all y'all did very well. You were so prepared and so convincing, and several of you attorneys came on really strong. That was really impressive. Abigail, you were really convincing with your testimony, and I almost wanted to cry with you. But I was really pleased, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Folks, that concludes this. I think I'm just supposed to shut the meeting down at this point in time. So if I do that I'm not trying to be rude to anybody, but that will conclude the hearing. Best of luck to both teams. You both deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you for